Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes, where we take a deep dive into Richard J. Evans' monumental work, The Third Reich in Power, 1933-1939.
An absolutely essential read for understanding this period.
It really is. This incredible book, it meticulously chronicles that pivotal period, 1933 to 39, when Hitler and the National Socialists solidified their grip on Germany,
Yeah.
transforming it from, well, a fragile democracy into a ruthless dictatorship, and ultimately plunging Europe into the Second World War.
Yeah, it lays it all out.
So our mission today for you is to really pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, maybe some surprising facts from Evans' super detailed account.
It's packed with them.
We'll explore how the Nazis systematically consolidated power, how they reshaped, every facet of German society and culture.
Right down to the economy, the
Right.
racial policies.
Exactly, reorienting the economy towards war, those horrific racial policies, and that relentless expansionist foreign policy. It's a story of calculated moves, chilling opportunism.
And devastating consequences.
Yeah.
Unchecked ambition, really.
Yeah, offering you a crucial shortcut to understanding this, well, complex and pivotal era.
And what's so fascinating about Evans's approach, I think, is how he builds this narrative. He shows that the path to total war and absolute control wasn't, a sudden leap.
Yeah.
It was more insidious. A process, a series of calculated steps, often opportunistic, exploiting existing weaknesses, divisions.
Inside Germany and outside, too.
Exactly. And the transformation was normalized bit by bit.
That idea of normalization bit by bit, it's chilling. So if we unpack this journey, starting right after 1933, what were those first moves? How did they seize and consolidate power in those crucial early years?
Well, you see this immediate political instability. You had conservative factions, many of whom were actually quite eager to dismantle the Weimar democracy anyway.
Right.
They saw an opportunity in enlisting the Nazis. They wanted to rearm the country, for instance. Chancellor Brüning's deflationary policies had kind of hindered that, cutting spending, starving the military of funds.
So the army wanted him out.
The army was particularly keen, yeah. And at the same time, within the Nazi movement itself, you had this intense internal power struggle playing out.
Between the army and the SA, the brown shirts.
Precisely. The established military viewed the SA, led by Ernst Röhm, with deep suspicion. They were worried about political infiltration, the dubious backgrounds of some SA leaders.
And Evans mentions rumors, even as early as February 33, of an SA state, a night of the long knives.
Yeah, and that quote from the SA leader, Max Heydrich, is something else. What can 100,000 soldiers do against such a greatly superior force of SA men? It really shows the tension.
The arrogance, almost.
Indeed. And it wasn't just the military. Vice Chancellor Papen, the one who initially backed Hitler.
Yes.
He soon found his office just overwhelmed with complaints about Nazi violence. He quickly realized his dream of a sort of conservative restoration clashed violently with the SA's rampant populism and, well, thuggery.
So he helped let the genie out of the bottle, but didn't realize how powerful it was.
Exactly. Not everyone who helped Hitler fully grasped the force they were unleashing.
And as the regime solidified, so did its symbolic control. Tell us about the German greeting.
Ah, yes. From July 13th, 1933, the German greeting Heil Hitler, it became compulsory for all state employees.
And later for everyone.
Later for all citizens, yeah. Reinforced by that upstretched right arm salute. You have to imagine how that simple, pervasive gesture permeated every single interaction.
It's more than a greeting.
Oh, absolutely. It was a daily act of forced conformity, a public demonstration of allegiance, whether you felt it or not.
And Goebbels, the propaganda chief, he moved fast on culture, doesn't he?
Incredibly fast.
Yeah.
September 33, he establishes the Reich Culture Chamber, basically a monopoly institution covering literature, theater, music, radio, film, art, the press, everything.
Giving him total control.
Total control. He could exclude anyone whose views were, quote, unacceptable to the regime, effectively silencing rivals like Alfred Rosenberg and just shaping cultural production entirely.
And this had already been preceded by the book burnings in May 33.
Yes, those notorious book burnings in university towns. Over 1,000 titles banned by December. A dramatic statement.
But you mentioned a striking hypocrisy regarding cultural control.
That's right, it's a fantastic point Evans makes, despite Disney cartoons largely vanishing from German screens under Goebbels' control.
Which makes sense ideologically.
Right. But Hitler himself received 18 Mickey Mouse films from Goebbels as a Christmas gift in 1937.
No way.
Yeah. It vividly shows how, while the masses were rigidly controlled, those at the very top often just exempted themselves. It reveals the arbitrary, self-serving nature of their power.
Wow. Okay, so beyond culture, the purges hit the civil service, education.
Yes, the Reich Law for the reestablishment of a professional civil service, April 33. It led to removing politically unreliable teachers. And by 1935, all Jewish teachers were pensioned off.
But Evans notes, surprisingly, most non-Jewish teachers weren't purged. What does that suggest?
Well, it suggests many were either not unsympathetic to the regime, or perhaps more likely, they just adapted quickly to its demands. A degree of tacit acceptance, or maybe just pragmatic compliance.
Rather than widespread opposition from teachers.
Seems that way. And it wasn't just political reliability. The regime wanted control at a biological level.
Yeah.
The Law for the Prevention of Hereditarily Diseased Offspring, July 33.
This is the forced sterilization law.
Correct. Authorizing sterilization for individuals deemed hereditarily ill, and quickly followed by a rule blocking marriage loans for anyone with hereditary ailments.
That's a chilling move. The state literally reaching into the most private aspects of life, sexuality, reproduction.
Absolutely. Intimate control.
Shifting gears slightly, the economy. The Autobahn, authorized June 33. How is that presented versus the reality?
Well, it was trumpeted as this massive job creator, a symbol of German progress, connecting cities, progress. Hitler, being an enthusiastic motorist himself, also saw them as scenic routes.
Linking the motor-born German soul to the landscape, as Evans puts it.
Right, that blend of practical infrastructure and ideology.
Yeah.
But despite the Nazis boasting about winning the battle for work,
The reality was different.
the economic recovery actually began tentatively in the second half of 1932, before their major interventions.
Oh, okay.
And things like the marriage loans meant to free up jobs for unemployed men. They primarily led to women leaving the workforce simply because the economy was improving anyway, not because those specific jobs went to men in heavy industry.
So they took credit for a trend already underway.
Largely, yes. They capitalized on it brilliantly, but the narrative wasn't the full picture.
That's crucial. Okay, 1934, a brutal turning point. June 30th, the night of the long knives. What happened?
This was ruthless. Hitler crushed the more radical elements in the party, especially the SA. Their demands for a permanent revolution were seen as a threat to his control. Other SA leaders murdered.
And not just the SA.
No, Papen's vice-chancellery was targeted too. His press secretary was killed. It cemented Hitler's absolute control over the party, sent a chilling message about extreme violence against rivals.
And the public reaction. Evans uses the example of Louise Solmis, the schoolteacher.
Yes, her reaction is fascinatingly complex. She described it as a day that shattered all of us right down to our innermost heart. But then she found herself overcome with admiration for Hitler's conduct. Compared him to Frederick the Great or Napoleon for his personal courage, decisiveness, and effectiveness.
Even the lack of a trial impressed her.
It seemed to increase her admiration. No trial, no drumhead court-martial. It highlights how some conservatives, so disillusioned with Weimar, were willing to overlook atrocities for what they saw as strong leadership.
This event really exposed what Ernst Frankl called the dual state, didn't it? Can you explain that concept?
Yes, it's crucial. Frankl saw two Germanys operating at once, a normative state still functioning with laws, procedures, and a prerogative state where Hitler's personal will was simply above all law.
So laws existed, but Hitler could just ignore them.
At any moment. He could bypass them entirely by personal decree, sanction murders, like in the Night of Long Knives.
Yeah.
It created this climate of constant fear, unpredictability. Legal protections could vanish overnight based purely on the leader's whim. Formerly illegal acts became, well, effectively legal because he said so.
Terrifying. And then, just over a month later, Hindenburg dies. August 2nd, 1934.
And Hitler doesn't hesitate. Merges the offices of President and Chancellor, assumes the title Leader and Reich Chancellor.
Ratified by a plebiscite.
Yes, on August 19th. The title of Reich President was officially abolished, declared inseparably united with the name of the great deceased. A swift, stunning power grab. The last real check on his power was gone.
And in the camps, what was happening there?
Theodor Eicke, appointed inspector of all camps in July 34, he systematized the brutal regime first used at Dachau, ensuring guards had untrammeled power, providing, quote, legally defensible excuses for the terror.
So formalizing the brutality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Though initial camp numbers actually declined by 1937 as the main left-wing opposition was crushed, the state penal system then took over much of the political repression. You had 14,000 political offenders in state prisons compared to fewer in the remaining big camps. A shift in tactics.
The regime also used new laws for repression, right? It targeting even minor dissent.
Oh, yes. New capital offenses in 33-34, planning to alter the Constitution, which could mean just handing out critical leaflets or hateful statements, even jokes about leaders. Jokes. Emma Thiem, a communist, became the first woman executed under these laws in August 33. Later, the malicious gossip law targeted chatterboxes, suppressing even inarticulate and uninformed expressions of discontent, trying to eliminate even the tiniest signs of unhappiness.
Did this rely heavily on people denouncing each other as the society policing itself?
That's a common image, but Evans argues denunciation was the exception, not the rule. The Gestapo actively hunted down dissent. It was primarily top-down terror, the state proactively crushing opposition.
Okay. Now, how did they try to win over the working class, traditionally more left-leaning, the Strength Through Joy, or KDF organization?
Right, KDF, set up in 1934. It offered discounted package tours, cruises. Millions participated. It was initially popular as an escape, from the tedium and repression of everyday life.
But did it foster the unity they hoped for?
Not always. Evans points out these trips often exposed class antagonisms, regional rivalries, and workers who had to pay compulsory contributions to the labor front anyway figure they might as well get something back for their money.
And used it for their own purposes.
Sometimes, yeah. A Social Democratic report from 35 noted KDF events offered cheap opportunities to find simple relaxation, where old friends could meet and, over a beer, discuss the very opposite of what the organizers want them to.
Subtle subversion.
Exactly. And farmers, though considered indispensable, kept grumbling openly about prices and government interference. Even heckled Nazi speakers. Shows the limits of indoctrination when economic realities bite.
Fascinating. Let's touch on foreign policy quickly. Hitler's early moves.
Cautious, but calculated. Withdrew from the League of Nations in October 33. Then, surprisingly, a 10-year non-aggression pact with Poland in January 34.
Why Poland?
Hitler personally forced it through. To secure Germany's eastern flank, while they were secretly rearming, he also started using people like Ribbentrop to bypass the traditional foreign ministry, setting up his own channels to control foreign policy, laying groundwork.
Okay, moving into 35-37, the grip tightens on culture and education.
Yes. For writers who stayed, inner emigration became a thing. Retreating from contemporary subjects, writing about nature, history, sometimes with veiled criticism.
Like Bergengruen's novel.
Exactly. The Great Tyrant and the Law Court from 1935. A bestseller because people read it as a critique of tyranny, even though the author denied it. In education, the Hitler Youth became increasingly dominant over schools.
More arrogant towards teachers.
Yeah, teenage activists behaving with increasing arrogance, wearing uniforms in school. A 34 regulation gave the Hitler Youth equal status with the schools as an educational institution.
And the focus shifted from academics.
Totally. Focus on character building over learning led to a sharp decline in educational quality. Employers complained by 39 that graduates' basic skills were poor. Remember Hans Skem, the Nazi Teachers League leader?
What did he say?
Famously declared, "Let us have 10 pounds less knowledge and 10 calories more character." Perfectly sums up their priorities.
Wow. And in medicine and academia?
Well, the racial hygiene movement was already strong in medical faculties. The Nazis pushed the new German healing, natural remedies, disdain for conventional medicine. Historians faced pressure, though many tried to maintain standards. Universities saw ideological lectures, but Evans notes many subjects kept going with only marginal concessions, and relatively open discussion was still possible in technical fields. Not a complete, seamless takeover everywhere.
Then came the Nuremberg Laws, September 1935. A horrifying escalation of anti-Semitism. What did they do?
They racially defined citizenship, stripping Jews of German nationality, banned marriage and sexual relations between Jews and non-Jews, created endless bureaucratic work classifying people, leading to arbitrary definitions for mixed-race individuals.
And the ancestry proof document.
Became essential for almost any job. The laws opened new ways to harass people. The Gestapo used flimsy excuses to arrest Jewish men, coerced non-Jewish servants to incriminate employers. And Aryanization, seizing Jewish businesses, accelerated. Larger firms dropped their scruples by 37, seizing opportunities with alacrity, systematic destruction, economic and social.
The pervasiveness of it is staggering. And behind this facade of unity, you mentioned corruption.
Oh, it was rampant. Robert Ley, head of the Labor Front, was just the tip of an enormous iceberg of peculation. Open, obvious corruption. Even Hitler amassed vast sums, not just his chancellor's salary. Royalties from My Struggle, 1.2 million Reichsmarks in 33 alone. That's huge money. Even postage stamp royalties, one check for 50 million Reichsmarks.
50 million.
50 million. And he notoriously evaded income tax. Officials were forced to write off the whole sum and destroy all the files. This wasn't secret. It was common knowledge. Hitler Youth members reported their own leaders embezzling funds for luxuries like motorbikes. Deep hypocrisy.
Undermines any claim of morality. Foreign policy then turns even more aggressive.
Definitely. Remilitarization of the Rhineland, March 36. That profoundly altered the balance. Left France defensive, gave Germany a free hand against Eastern Europe. Austria felt very vulnerable. Then intervention in the Spanish Civil War from July 36, supporting Franco, showing willingness for conflict.
And the agreement with Austria.
Signed July 36, accepting it as a German state, but Hitler saw it just as the thin end of a political wedge for full annexation.
Which brings us to 1938. Events accelerate dramatically. The Blomberg-Frisch affair.
Right, early 38. A scandal involving the war minister's marriage to an ex-prostitute and fabricated allegations against the army commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
It deeply disturbed Hitler personally, but he used it. It allowed him to purge dissenting generals, remove potential military opposition to his plans, and assume direct command of the armed forces himself. A calculated move using a personal crisis.
And soon after, March 38, the Anschluss, annexation of Austria.
Swiftly done. Austrian Chancellor Schuschnigg tried a desperate plebiscite. Hitler thwarted it, marched in triumphantly to Vienna, declared, "These people here are Germans." Austria absorbed, identity erased, Vienna downgraded.
And the immediate impact on Austrian Jews.
Horrific, immediate brutal violence. SS squads forcing Jews to clean toilets with bare hands, confiscating apartments. Adolf Eichmann arrived days later, set up his central agency for Jewish emigration. Used confiscated Jewish assets to finance forced emigration, often after systematic abuse. Chillingly efficient state plunder and displacement.
Then, September 38, the Sudetenland crisis. Czechoslovakia, Europe on the brink. What was the mood in Germany?
Evans describes a war psychosis spreading. Goebbels noted growing anxiety. Most people felt the Sudeten German demands were justified, but they wanted them to be realized without war. Widespread feeling that nobody thought that Germany could win a war against Britain and France.
A stark contrast to 1914 enthusiasm.
Absolutely. Deep fatigue with the regime's constant demands. Popularity had already waned since 34. Despite all the propaganda, the crushing of dissent, you see these hints of fatigue, personal resistance, farmers grumbling, workers finding subversive meanings in KDF trips. The national community was never fully achieved in hearts and minds.
Which leads to Kristallnacht, November 9-10, 1938, Night of Broken Glass.
The most horrific violence before the war, triggered by a Jewish teenager assassinating a German diplomat in Paris, a state-sponsored pogrom, synagogues, Jewish shops, homes destroyed across Germany, streets covered in glass.
And Goebbels' reaction.
He reveled in it. Noted in his diary, the shock troop carries out frightful work. Callously dismissed the first Jewish death. Thousands of Jews were going to cop it in the next few days. About 30,000 Jewish men arrested, sent to Dachau. Buchenwald death tolls skyrocketed immediately.
Children participated.
Yes. Often taught at school to see Jews as criminals, they joined the looting, harassment. Jewish families then forced to pay for the damages. Hitler ordered the gradual expropriation of Jewish businesses and the world. Mostly watched, shocked, but failed to provide safe haven. The U.S. bill to let 20,000 children enter failed due to quotas.
A dark, dark chapter. So 1939 dawns, final preparations for war, Hitler's final instructions.
He summoned his commanders August 22, 1939. Confident, especially with the Stalin Pact about to be signed, declared his intent to invade Poland, called Britain and France tiny little worms who wouldn't intervene.
His order.
Chilling. Close your hearts to pity. Act brutally. The stronger man is right. Conquest to the east would secure resources, undermine any blockade. The war against Poland, launched September 1st, was, in his own words from the start, a war of racial conquest, subjugation, and extermination.
And Louis Solmitz again.
Expressing that widespread anxiety as war broke out. A world full of blood and atrocity. Now that Europe's wounds have been healed after 21 years, the West will be annihilated.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How a regime so obsessed with external display, total control of information, still faced this internal friction, these pockets of discontent. For all the Hitler cult, the rallies, the propaganda, public enthusiasm peaked early, faded by 34, low by 36. Even Gestapo reports noted widespread fatigue with every kind of propaganda.
But it rarely turned into principled opposition.
Rarely widespread principled opposition, no, which is perhaps one of the most sobering lessons. So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? Richard Evans's meticulous detail shows how relentlessly, how quickly a society can be transformed. Calculated politics, eroding liberties, propaganda, normalizing state violence. It's a profound reminder.
It really is.
And maybe a final thought for you to consider. Despite the Nazis' all-encompassing effort to mold this unified national community, despite crushing even the tiniest signs of discontent, the historical record shows this complex tapestry. Enthusiasm, yes, but also grumbling fatigue, even subtle subversion.
Yeah.
Which raises that important question. To what extent can any regime truly control the inner thoughts, the genuine allegiances of its people, even under the most extreme totalitarian conditions?